and thrive. I thank you, President.
I thank the representative of Sri Lanka for his statement, and I give the floor to the representative of His Excellency, Mr. Majid Abdelaziz, the permanent observer of the observer mission of the League of Arab States to the United Nations.
شكرا سيد الرئيس.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for convening this session, and I thank Mr. Ramzi Albanov, Deputy Special Coordinator for the Middle East process, for his comprehensive briefing. Madam President, this open debate takes place as the dangerous situation in Gaza and across the occupied Palestinian state is at a major crossroads. There is a glimmer of hope, but there are also deep fears of failure in the implementation and of the repercussions on the political, strategic, and security situation in the Middle East as a whole. We were encouraged by the signing in Sharm el-Sheikh of the ceasefire agreement as part of a deal that remains fragile and only addresses the Gaza Strip. The implementation of the first phase began with the release of Israeli hostages and the handover of the remains of others, and the release in return of a number of Palestinian detainees as a prelude to implementing other steps to promote international engagement with the current humanitarian situation. This includes putting an end to the starvation and genocide and ensuring the delivery of humanitarian aid with the start of the implementation of recovery and reconstruction plans. This is to be followed by reaching the desired political settlement of the Palestinian cause through negotiations for a final solution between Palestinians and Israelis to implement the two-state solution, paving the way towards the full membership of the independent state of Palestine in the United Nations. The Arab League would like to begin by expressing its appreciation for the efforts of the U.S. President Trump and his growing interest in reaching a peaceful settlement for the Palestinian cause. We also express appreciation for the intensive mediation by Egypt, Qatar, Turkey, and the United States to reach a ceasefire. We really appreciate the role of the Arab Islamic Ministerial Committee entrusted with implementing the two-state solution, chaired by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and by the International Coalition for a Two-State Solution. We express our appreciation for all American, Arab, and international efforts to consolidate the ceasefire and ensure the unimpeded flow of humanitarian aid through all crossings at scale and through UNRWA. International efforts must be intensified to implement the Arab Islamic Plan for Recovery and Reconstruction adopted by the Emergency Arab Summit in Cairo. Egypt is working to hold an international conference to mobilize the necessary funding for the implementation of this plan. We stress the need for Israel to implement the important ICJ advisory opinion adopted on October 22nd, which confirmed Israel's humanitarian and development obligations as an occupying power towards the UN, specifically UNRWA, and the occupied Palestinian people, including its obligation to stop the genocide and the deliberate starvation of the Palestinian people. However, this cannot succeed without the United Nations' central role in implementing the New York Declaration, which created an internationally supported political horizon for addressing the Palestinian cause in all its dimensions, not just the Gaza Strip. By implementing the two-state solution and ensuring the admission of the independent state of Palestine as a full member at the United Nations. This is reinforced by the remarkable success of the Ministerial Conference and World Summit held at the United Nations on the implementation of the two-state solution and the settlement of the Palestinian question under the leadership of Saudi Arabia and France. This resulted in a significant increase in the number of countries recognizing the State of Palestine and the adoption by the General Assembly of this important declaration by an overwhelming majority as a roadmap towards achieving these goals. Its key steps include support from the United Nations and the international community for the reform measures pledged by the Palestinian Authority and the provision of the necessary financial resources for the Palestinian government to allow it, as the Supreme Central Palestinian Authority, to extend its full control over the Palestinian territories, including the entire Gaza Strip and the West Bank, away from any other schemes or external or Israeli influence. The International Stabilization Force will be established with the approval and active participation of the Palestinian Authority in preparation for the transfer of its powers to the Palestinian Authority once the situation stabilizes. For this to happen, the extreme right-wing Israeli government must stop daydreaming and must seize its pursuit of what it calls the dream of Greater Israel. The countries of the Middle East, especially Arab countries, will not allow Israel or any other state to dominate the Middle East region under any circumstance, no matter how superior their military capabilities are with external military support. It also requires that Israel realize that its condemned military aggression against the state of Palestine, Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, and recently the state of Qatar will not serve its interests in the short or long term, but will lead to a larger regional confrontation with dire consequences. It should also realize that its deliberate withholding of billions of clearing funds strengthens the control of extremist forces over the situation on the ground as an alternative to the legitimate Palestinian Authority, which needs all our support and endorsement. Israel should realize that its continued religious provocation of Muslims and Christians through the repeated storming by members of its extremist government of the holy religious sites, especially Al-Aqsa Mosque, the Church of the Covenant, and other Muslim and Christian holy sites, only entrenches hatred and anger and threatens any chance of coexistence in peace and harmony. It should realize that the continuation of its fierce settlement policies, which violate Resolution 2334 and others, will not diminish the Palestinian people's attachment to recovering their stolen land, and that its policies of starvation and terrorism and its obstruction of reconstruction will not allow it to control the Gaza Strip or the West Bank, nor will it force the Palestinian people who are so attached to their land and state to leave. The free and proud Palestinian people will continue to fight for their legitimate and inalienable rights, especially their rights to establish their free, independent state on the lines of 1967 with Al-Quds al-Sharif as its capital, with the full support of the Arab League, its member states, the United Nations, and the entire international community. Thank you, Madam President.
I thank Mr. Abdelaziz, His Excellency.